All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Ownership. It is Peyton here, and sadly, we don't have Tyler today, but the show must go on, you know. We have a very awesome guest here today. Many of you guys might know him. He lectures at quite a few schools, some of the bigger conferences. We have Charles Loretto from NDP and Cane Waters. Charles, how you doing today?
What's up, man? Congratulations on this TPO launch. This is crazy. I wish I could tell you that I knew the history and the story of this, but just in kind of our little pre meeting, I'm really proud of what you guys are doing. I mean, you know a little about me. I'm super passionate about helping people into ownership, and the fact that you guys have a podcast that's even called The Pursuit of Ownership, it just gives me a big old smile on a Friday morning. So I'm equally pumped to talk to you, man.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely not, not all students are super interested in ownership, but it's really cool to kind of interact with the ones that are, just because it's such a tight knit group of people. Um,
Mhm.
just getting to interact with, help them out however we can. It's been really rewarding. And yeah, what Tyler and then more recently I have kind of helped build around here with the show it's been awesome. So glad to have
Well,
you on. And yeah, what were you gonna
yeah,
say?
the thing, Peyton, is I've lectured, like you said, all around the country to 35 to 40,000 dental students, 51 dental schools, and I stand up at these schools and give this loud, in your face lecture that's not promoted. I'm not getting paid to go speak there. I'm putting my own time and energy and money and going and yelling and motivating young people that are in debt. And the thing is, I have so many people just come up and just basically say, "Hey, thank you. Thanks for the message." And so that's the message I always give to these students is it's your why. If you don't understand your why would you become an owner? If you're $400,000 in debt, and you don't have any business training, why would you become an owner? And there's 100% reason you become an owner. It is a no brainer. Every time I know that you guys are good about looking at practices and analyzing if it's a good deal or a bad deal or not. That's what I do, and I'm super super excited when I see them. And if you can understand that you're going to make more money, you can understand you can build equity in a business. You can understand that as a business owner, you get to tax plan. If you can understand as a business owner, you get to prepare for retirement, put all this money away, and have choice down the road. And lastly, just control your own destiny with all the different things from hiring people and what days you're going to work, the patients you're going to see. I mean, it's a no-brainer to own. I mean, you guys are in the greatest profession uh, in all professions in the United States, and the fact that somebody might maybe not consider own, it's just I honestly I just don't think they understand their why. And because when they do, they get pretty fired up, and that's when I get fired up when I see they're fired up, and I get to see them when they buy something, and so anyway, my juices are flowing already, man. It's like one sip of coffee, and I'm thinking about it. I'm all jacked up this morning.
Perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And the thing too is like people always bring up like student debt and tuition going up and all that stuff. It's starting to get to the point where if you're not an owner, like you start to wonder like is it worth it? Like is it worth, going through all the school, going through the money to get to, this point?
Look, if you find me another gig, okay, let's just play with some other businesses. Say you want to be a pilot and you want to borrow $250,000 to get to be a pilot. You want to be a pharmacist and you want to go borrow 200, 300, $400,000 to be a pharmacist and make $130,000 a year and stand behind a desk and dispense pills. No offense to everyone that is in the pharmacy business. I apologize, but if I'm being brutally honest, there's no return on investment there. But if you borrow 400 grand and you had to stand in line, you're one of these top, your undergrad was probably perfect at, 3.7 to 4. You've got a great science background. You had 1,000 people apply for your job, which you got into, and you're $400,000 in debt, and you got to write a $3,000 check every month. Okay, you make 400 grand, 500 grand. My average general dentist that I work with, average, makes $500,000. You show me how to replace $500,000 in this country as a 29-year-old young person, show me. They don't exist. They don't exist unless you're an entrepreneur. And this is the quickest, I don't know, steps into entrepreneurship and being successful that I know. If there was another one, I would gladly love to hear about it and share some of those stories as well. But this is an amazing opportunity that people just, when I see these Facebook feeds of debt and debt and debt, how do I, is the government is going to relieve the debt? Hopefully the government's going to relieve it. I'm like, seriously? The goal is not to relieve your debt. The goal is to make a ton of money. The goal is to make a ton of money and have a ton of wealth and then balance and pay, be responsible and pay your debt. I mean, I just don't understand that whole debt thing. It's like, it's the ticket to paradise. It's the ticket for you to have this opportunity to be in the top 1%. So that's my, man.
It's the price you have to pay. It's like the price of entry to get into such an awesome career, such an awesome profession.
Yeah, and it is. The reason it's awesome is go to banks. I know you've interviewed bankers. Your default rate in dentistry is like 0.5%. It means this: you guys go borrow money, have no business training, you buy a business, you start a business, and your default rate is 0.5%. I'd say it's safe. If you're a conservative, nervous person, and you knew you had a 99.5% success rate in succeeding, because that's your success rate of I'm not defaulting on my loan, and you're still nervous, maybe you're not for ownership. But if you can play with those odds, which are pretty good odds, I'm like, you can do this.
Yeah, and the thing is too, like that's including people that have not really much of a desire at all to own a business, to own their own practice. Like those people that kind of just feel like, that includes people that just kind of feel like they need to. They're not like invested in it. They're just like, I just want to do the dentistry and go home. That's not including, I mean, it is including, but it's not only people that just want to own a business, want to succeed. So
yeah, people just kind of fall into it, sometimes a partnership or something like that. And even the people that fail, it's my experience, because I know these people who do fail, it's something weird. Like they got in drugs, they lost their dental license somehow, they did something really bad. And so
yeah,
those are the people that end up failing. But the rest of you guys, I mean, we're all drivers. You wouldn't have gotten to this position to this point. It's just the tiny bit of little nerves that are around you with the debt, the tight little nerves around you that are about the whole business concept. And man, if we can just surround you with good information, good podcasts, good stories of successful people that are doing this and sharing it to the younger class, man, it gives this energy and our ability to be very competitive against this corporate environment that is truly trying to take over our industry. And so I think just with good education and kind of understanding your why, that we meaning me too, because I'm in this business, we can overcome this.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So kind of transitioning here a little bit. So you've been in the industry for quite a while. You've seen a lot of deals go through. You've helped a lot of people. What have you seen in the last 6 to 9 months as far as changes? Students that are going to be graduating soon in the next couple of years. Where was it before? Where is it now? And where do you kind of see it going as far as transitions go?
Yeah. So when basically in March of 2020 of this year, when the whole country basically shut down and we all like freaked out, like what's going to happen? What two couple things is employees, associates, they figured out real quickly they were unemployed and they weren't as maybe risk free in their life that they thought, and the government came and bailed out the owners. And then we slowly opened back up and we slowly brought people back into the workforce. And the last person that we brought back is this associate doctor. So what happened, Peyton, is associates became really ticked off. They were like, okay, this is bullcrap. Like, I get it. Like, whatever it takes, I'm going to freaking own now. And so there's a new sense of energy that popped in. There's another sense of energy that popped into these established doctors, typically men. They're just kind of hanging on. I don't know if I want to transition on. I'm 62, 65, 67, 70. And then now they spent 2-3 months with their grandkids And all of a sudden they're like, hey, I kind of like it. Kind of like my wife, kind of like my husband, I like my grandkids. And, I kind of like this thing. And so what happened is a significant amount of transitions happened this year. We were buried with transitions. And we went from doing nothing to just being crazy busy. And the banks have experienced the exact same thing. And so what's nice about being in this business for over 20 years and having relationships with all these national banks and all the players and relationships at Cane Waters, we have 2,300 dental clients that we work with. Um, and then Chrissy and I, we do a podcast with NDP, and we touch literally thousands of young students and residents as well as about how to become an owner as well. And so we're touching, and we got relationships with all these people, and people are fired up more than ever now. And when the banks first came back in this, they were like, whoa, wait a minute. Now we need more liquidity. We need to see these numbers. We need to see these numbers. And so banks became very hesitant at first. Matter of fact, one of the largest players in dentistry basically said, we're not doing startups right now. We're not doing startups for the rest of the year. Okay. That was a big, big paradigm shift as far as like, holy crap, this is going to change the game. But as you know in life, you start back up, things kind of start happening again. And what you see in business and you see in the business of dentistry, it's resilient. The resiliency in dentistry is incredible. And this event right now, this 2020 year, it's an event. It's something we look back, we reflect on, we learn from. You can go back in dentistry and you look in 2008 and 2009, and for some some of your young listeners, it's like, okay, well, I know that was like I don't know, some type of market correction or something. So what does that mean? Well, it's an event. And so if you went back in 2008, 2009, you'll see that the market, the stock market, stocks, businesses went down almost 40%, 40. So then if you want to see about resiliency, you would say is, hey, let's take a look at some of these big firms like Shine and Patterson. They're public. Can we take a look to see what the supply costs and what their revenue was? Did it go up or down those years? Did it go down 40%? No, it only went down around 6%. So what you just said there is the economy, even though it had these major drops, this was a kind of a freak out moment in 2020, but there's been freak out moments in the past. And what you see is dentistry is just fine. You didn't have 40% bankruptcies. You didn't have $1 million practices all of a sudden doing 600. You had $1 million practices that maybe started doing, I don't know, 950, 900. Some of them grew. And it's just because it's all how you position yourself. If you're going to be that owner, you're going to be this entrepreneur owner, and this happens. I got so many stories of cool stories of like 45-year-old people having their 13, 14-year-old kids answering phones, March the 25th, and basically saying, Loretto Dentistry with a young voice. And it's like, yeah, this is my mom and dad's practice, and we're seeing new patients. We're seeing emergencies. My dad is excellent. We can get you here. Like those stories just gave me goosebumps because people just said, oh, I'm out. Or, you know what, here's a crisis, I'm in this. And as a business owner, I think that you're in it. You're in it, man. But there's rewards. You're going to make twice as much money and have all this growth and equity and all this stuff. But there's a little bit of risk along the way. But I tell you, man, there's risk if you don't own, because just like what happened in 2009 or just what happened in this, if that doctor decided they didn't need you, you're disposable. And that's where you don't want to be in that position. You always want to be in control of your own destiny.
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely want to touch on a couple things you said there. First off, about the associates, like lots of people think like if you're an associate, oh, like it's safe, like I don't have to deal with anything, like I just go get my paycheck and go home. But I mean, as of this year is a perfect example. Like people quickly realize like you're not in the safest spot as an associate. It's not even close.
No. It's like you're a Dallas boy. You're uptown. So I mean, the cool thing, let's go live in uptown. Let's get a nice, maybe 2 or 3 year old Beamer and let's drive around. Let's have fun. I want to be young and have fun. And I'm going to work here and there's just no risk. And I can make, maybe you're going to be in this corporate office and it's going to be really busy. You're going to crank out like $60,000 of clinical dentistry and you're going to make like 200 grand. That's like awesome. But what happens is in that office, somebody at corporate, they're looking and they're saying, okay, Peyton, he's been pretty consistent. He hasn't really done more than $60,000 of clinical dentistry in the last 4 months. So, and I can see that we're doing a good job on marketing. I see we're doing a good job on bringing new patients, and our doctors are kind of booked out, and he is. And so he's not working Fridays. I don't know. I have an idea. Why don't we bring another Tyler in and make him kind of his competitor? And now all of a sudden, now your schedule's not full. So now all of a sudden you're coasting in the clear, making your 200, thinking life is good, doing these procedures. And I don't know, things changed in the corporate office because they brought somebody else in. I don't know. Maybe it was a private practice and maybe the private practice sold to somebody. I don't know. Maybe the private practice owner says, I don't want to give you these procedures anymore. I don't know. Maybe the private practice, the son is graduating from dental school and they're going to replace you and kick you out. I don't know. But I'm telling you, everything I just said are stories I've got wrapped around, and you're at risk all day, every day when you don't own this thing.
Yeah, definitely. And then on the topic of resilience, I know you talked about 08, 09 with, supply costs not really going down that much, practices not seeing as big of a decline as, the market in general. Even here in 2020, yes, okay, we had practices that might have closed down for a month or two, whatever it was. But then after that, those months after, you were seeing record breaking production like for months at a time. I can't count on two hands like the amount of dentists I've talked to that have been like, I mean, yes, we were shut down, but after that, like we've had awesome months. So it's incredible.
So again, great thing about having a pulse of having 2,000 clients. I've got over 200 employees that work at Kane Waters, and I mean, we communicate. And I've got an accounting department that I can see financials numbers are, and our financial statements are stronger than they ever have been. Say it this way: people have more cash in their business accounts than they had in years. Okay, you get a benefit of the practice being able to shut down, not hiring basically the same people you wanted to come back. You have the ability to like, hey, let me tighten up the screws a little bit and how my business is ran with all my, I don't know, my supplies and my lab. They start to think about it. You get a doctor sitting home for two months, they start to really think about how their business is ran. And then all of a sudden the government gives them a bunch of money and all of a sudden they got extra cash. And so absolutely, we had really strong production months and collection months, and then just the liquidity. I've done I've shown in lectures where like Zoom lectures I've done for state meetings just recently, where I took this practice, and even though the practice was down essentially like 15 to 18% on the production side, because of their costs were down, and because of the PPP monies that they received and the HHS monies, both stimulus packages that owners receive, not associates, that their net cash and their taxable income is actually more this year with less work. But to answer your question, if you go back and look at, like, let's say September over September, October from 19 and 20, these practices are doing very well. Going back to that resiliency thing, I mean, patients still need dentists, and they trust their dentist. They they're not asking PPE questions. They trust them. They know if they're going in, it's safe. It's a trusted relationship they have with you.
Yeah, and too, now I feel this pain at school. Like if they come to the dentist and they see you looking like a freaking astronaut, like they know they're in a safe place. They know they're in a safe place. Like they know things are clean. Like I feel like the dentist is probably one of the safer places now. Like, not that it hasn't been before, but you go to like grocery stores, restaurants, all those places open. Like, I guarantee there's not even close to the level of care being taken.
No. This is like it's the craziness of us, masked up to going into the restaurant, and now I'm 3 feet behind somebody. It's like this. I'll put my mask on to walk 3 feet outside, but now I'm walking past people outside. It's just like it's the craziness. So absolutely, we're super secured. I've been to the dermatologist. I've been to both my GP, my periodontist. I've been to my orthodontist. I've just been into dental practices, and man, absolutely, it's so. I mean, I feel so super safe. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's safer there than any place that I've been in. I actually, it's even safer than my physician's office, to be quite honest. I can think about that. And yeah, it's fine. But my dental office, man, you're in the parking lot. I mean, I had the temperature check in. I had the, I had to get lathered up, and then the door was open, stepping in. I mean, it was like, you're not touching anything. This is how we're going to work. So, yeah,
Yeah.
dental offices have done a really, really good job. And I think we'd hear about it too if if one of the 150,000 did a bad job, and I think you'd hear about it, and we just haven't.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
5 years ago, as I was leaving work at Dentaltown, I ran into Ryan Isaac, one of the co-founders of Dentist Advisors. I immediately started grilling him on the questions I use to filter out advisors. I asked, do you sell insurance mixed with your investment products? Is that something I can do through you? And he's like, no, absolutely. We keep those separate. Investing, insurance, we don't do insurance. It's like, okay, good. Step one. Step two, how about index funds? Is that something that you guys use versus individual stocks or mutual funds that you guys are tied into? He's like, no, absolutely. We do index fund investing intelligently. And then step three, are you a fee-only fiduciary? Well, I didn't exactly ask that because I didn't know the words, but essentially, is there a conflict of interest in your recommendations and how you get paid? And sure enough, they are a fee-only fiduciary. Since that day, they are the only advisors that I recommend. The amazing thing is, Dentist Advisors has now built an app that has brought the accessibility and the affordability of their Elements platform to young dentists like you and me who aren't ready for a full financial advisor, but need financial planning desperately. The app is still in beta, but Dentist Advisors is allowing exclusive beta access to a small group of dentists who want to chart a path to financial freedom. To jump on this offer, go to dentistadvisors.com/shared beta.
Are you seeing banks loaning similarly to how they were before? Are they requiring more of an upfront kind of down payment or liquidity? What are you seeing in that arena?
Yeah, so they made a shift. The major players, they literally called Christy and I, and emailed us, and basically said, hey, I know you sent us a lot of business. I want to give you a heads up so we can set expectations. Um, so let's go back to what a bank really looks for. So a bank looks for is, let's play with $1 million practice. $1 million practice, let's say, has a value of $800,000. So a bank looks for a buyer, and they're looking at about 3 to 4 things. First of all, is, do they have liquidity? So liquidity was typically 5%. That they'll tell you 10. Okay, the number you need to have minimum was 5. So 5% of the 800 grand is 40 grand. So that was your minimum number. You need.
And what is the liquidity? What does the liquidity look like? So does it need to be cash? Like, can it be
Yeah.
investments? What does it look
Yeah.
like?
So yeah, exactly. So liquidity typically is what they're referring to is something you can just take to cash. So this just literally savings account, checking account. It can be an after-tax investment. So this could be actual individual stocks. It could be just a mutual fund. Some banks are particular, like if maybe your parents or maybe your grandparent like started an IRA or some type of 401k or something, depending on your age, you might have worked a little bit. Those monies are in tax deferred buckets, and some banks like that, some don't. So I just say, from a liquidity standpoint, is can you get the money out right now? Now, what's cool about it is they'll give you 100% financing, so there's no down payment involved in this transaction. They're just, do you have the money? Yes or no? Do you have the money? How long have you been out? So D4s, they don't like to give D4s a bunch of money. Max will usually give around $350,000. It's kind of like a max number, and that's fine. That just means if you graduate as a D4, which I helped 2 this year become owners right after they finished their program. One of them you interviewed, and so what we do there is we know we have a very small limit that we're going to be able to lend. So we're just going to buy a small practice, buy like a 500 GP practice. For the most part, they want to see liquidity. They want to see your experience. If you've got more than 1 year experience, now it's a matter of how much can you produce. If you can produce that example where you're doing 60,000 of collections doctor wise, that tells me you're doing about over $700,000 of clinical. That tells me you can check $300,000 of hygiene. This tells me you can run $1 million business. This is not Charles. This is Banks. So I'm the interpreter of how this is all going to go down. And I know the red flags are going to happen. So if I see all that, and we're good. So this is pre-COVID. Post-COVID, they basically said, hey, we're going to step that number up to 10%. Now, the reality is they came with 10%, 10%, super hard. I've already seen them lighten that up. I've already seen the closing deals, last month, and they didn't have 10%. It's just, that's what it came out. And so we're really going to have to tighten it up. Now, all of a sudden, this bank said they're going to tighten it up and they're not going to lend. This bank didn't say anything. They're doing all the business. And then this bank goes, holy crap, we're not getting the business. And this one's gaining traction. Let's go back to old ways.
Competition is a great thing, isn't it?
It's a beautiful thing, brother. It is a beautiful thing. Banking is by far a very, very competitive environment. So it's good to see. And again, why wouldn't they? 99% success rate. Why wouldn't they do this?
Yeah, and I think the kind of hesitancy that we were seeing in those kind of early months of COVID, it was just like throughout all of society, like everyone was just scared, like they didn't really know what was going on. But now, I mean, despite still having a lot of cases and whatnot, like people can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. They can kind of see things returning back to normal. Like people can picture that now. So it's like banks are kind of the same way. They're like, all right, I can see where this is going. I can see it going back to normal. And so it's nice to see similar terms that we were seeing before.
Man, in the end, they're sitting on cash. And that's how the bank works, is they have to make loans. And so do you want to loan your money to the pizza place? Is that the new, you want a restaurant business, that we're going to have another shutdown, and you saw those businesses shut down? Is it the barber shop? I don't know. Is it the nail salon business that went out of business? I mean, or is it the dental practice that are still paying their bills? Right. So I think that as major institutions are sitting on, billions, if not trillions of cash, you kind of have to think about it. Like, where do we want to invest our money? What group of people that we feel comfortable with? And I think that's why private equity is so involved in this space, because they see the security as well. Because private equity is a bank, and make no mistake about it. It's a bank, it's investors, however you want to look at it. And they see the safety in this space, and that's why they're here, and that's why they don't want to go away, because they're making money on their return. So,
yeah, absolutely. Great. Yeah, that's awesome. So obviously you help out with a lot of transitions. Where are some common places that you see people get stuck on, common mistakes you see, and kind of how you can help mitigate or reduce some of those mistakes you're seeing?
I mean, if I was to think about just several mistakes on the journey, okay, so the journey is 30 years. Like, I'm 26 years old. I get out of dental school, and what are the mistakes along the journey? First mistake I always say is just that you didn't have a plan. Like, you just got out and just like, all right, I'll just work for a couple of years and just try to figure this out. And man, nothing wrong with that. Go have fun. But I would say that if you don't have a plan, just the shortest route to ownership is to go work at the busiest practice that does adult clinical dentistry, that does as much CE as possible, just so you get your confidence up. And so you're trying to get like your daily production number of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 days. That's what you're trying to do, because this tells you can do it. And not creating the opportunity is probably the number one thing. And so I'm known for the mail campaign. It's a proven strategy that we have with letters and the phone calls and the emails, and developing a spreadsheet and communicating with reps and lunches. And so the first thing is creating the opportunity. Do do not, I repeat, do not rely on the internet to solve your problem. This is where I'm going to find my opportunity. The internet is the worst place to find a listing. The listing is going to be the crappy practice that no one else wanted to buy, the crappy practice that the broker said is crap. And I've already shopped it to the private equity groups because that's how these brokers are getting paid now. And so it's the leftover, and you don't want to be dating leftover. So just, you got to remove that. And so create the opportunity with this mail campaign. The second is, once you have a relationship with a doctor, is to know how to communicate with them. And so really good communication strategy with an interview with them, doing in-depth interviews as far as like, tell me about your vision. How do you see your transition with me? Tell me about your patients, tell me about the procedures that you're doing. And how would you envision incorporating a partnership or a transition, writing all that down, repeating that back, and then go, what kind of transition plan can we put together to implement this? Okay. So creating the opportunity, one, and then two is to have written goals with you and the established doctor of what your transition goals are. And then the two of you decide, okay, let's get a team to guide us through this process. And what happens is, when you don't do this process, 2, 3, 4 years go by, and that your idea sometimes of a plan as well. He said that I would just, we would talk about it in 2 years, and I would be maybe a partner. But that's just not a plan. It's just not a plan. It's nothing written. There's no plan of action. There's who's going to do it, who's accountable. You need to be checking in with the person every 6 months of how we're doing. And so that's part of that process. And then third part of the process that I would say from people just, get frustrated and make mistakes on is they get so frustrated that they're going to start a business from scratch. And I'm all about ownership. Believe me, I've actually started a business from scratch. I started NDP, and from 2005 to 2011, I've got a big old zero showing up in our squad cast that Peyton's looking at. That's the money I made right there, brother. Had no money. So we make a bunch of money now. We help a bunch of people, but that took a long time to get that thing going. And so I always prefer buying established practice because I've got established patients. So sometimes you go down these roads of, I got frustrated, I couldn't find anything, so I'm just going to do a startup. And now all of a sudden, not only do you need to have a job, but you need to all of a sudden become an excellent business person, an excellent marketing driven person, to understand how new patient flow works and how hiring works. And it just, we can get there, but it's a numbers game of how long it takes to get that startup practice going. So if I was to summarize, I would say that people don't have a plan and they're not creating one. 2 is, once they're in the practice, they don't have written goals with action plans. 3, they let their emotion get involved because step 1 and 2 didn't work. And so then they do a startup. The other area I see that people make mistakes on is the emotion of, I'm in the practice. I've been there for 3 years. It grew, it was at 800 collections. Now it's at 1 million, 1.2 million, 1.4 million, and the guy or gal wants more money for it. I'm ticked off and I'm just ready to go. Okay. These are emotions. So what I pride myself in is developing a team is remove emotions from these financial decisions so that we can create the math and say, okay, so that didn't work for you, but here's the opportunity, right? So here's the opportunity to be an owner. Here's the opportunity to go out this other thing. And so it's kind of going through that cycle of just saying, and they all lead back to getting to the ownership, sooner than later. And I want to share some stories too with some young people that I think they can relate to as far as practices that they were in and what didn't work and why, and some opportunities I've recently seen and some success stories. And so I'll go down that road as well. So what else? I've listened to a couple of the episodes. You and Tyler do a good job when you're interviewing. I feel like I've been dominating a little bit of it because
No, it's good.
I'm a
It's
passionate person about ownership. So I'm sorry about that.
it's all good stuff to hear. Yeah, it's honestly super refreshing whenever we have someone on that does a podcast, because you can kind of like give them something and then they'll like just keep going. Whereas like lots of times we have to kind of pry if like it's someone that hasn't been on a lot of
Yeah.
podcasts or anything. So it's all good stuff. One thing I do want to say that you brought up, and I think it's a fantastic point, is taking the emotions out of it. And I've seen this from my own perspective too. Like, it's so easy to tell someone like, hey, like, you got to stop looking at this emotionally. Like, why are you doing that? But when it's you in that situation, it is so hard. Like, you just like, you want it to be perfect. You want it to, have all the things you want. And the reality of it is, like, you're probably not going to find the perfect practice to purchase. It might be perfect for your long-term goals, but the chance of finding something that's exactly what you want right off the bat, like it's just so rare. And do you see people being frustrated with that on your side too?
Yeah. I mean, you've got some that will like look forever and they just can't make a decision. And I never push people into like you have to do this, but I'll definitely look at a deal and I'll sit there and say, this is a no freaking brainer. Like, if you're trying to find something better than this, I give people free advice. Like, I'll spend hours with you analyzing the business, looking at tax returns, profit and loss statements, investment statements. Just like, does this make sense for you to purchase? Go through the scenario. Here's the cash. Here's this. Here's the real estate. The guy's going to work back for you. The girl's going to work back for you. It's going to be a partnership. I will exhaust my time and our employees' time to listen. It's like, does this make sense? But there's a point in time. It's like, it's a no freaking brainer. Okay, it's like, we're going to purchase this. We're going to purchase this as soon as possible. What bank are you working with? Let's close. So, like, are you sure? I'm like, well, 100%. Like, there's a note. Like, and I always say this, like, you got something else? Is something else better? You know what I mean? Like,
Turn it back on them.
yeah, is there something else that's better that I'm not seeing here? Because I don't know. It's just this makes perfect sense to me, and typically it has to do with cash. And so I like business to make a lot of money. And so $1 million practices in general dentistry, ideally, once you cross over this 800, 900 collections, you should start incrementally making 45, 50 cents on the dollar. Okay, incrementally. So in smaller practices that make around 500, they don't make much. They only make around 150. Okay, 175. Nothing wrong with that. But when you buy a business, in this case, if it's doing 500, and in this case, it's making 175, well, you're going to have to pay for it. And that price for the practice could be $400,000. And now if you pay debt on $400,000, that's $50,000 a year. And now all of a sudden the business doesn't make 175, it makes 125. And so now all of a sudden, well, I make more than that as an associate. Why would I do that? Well, then it has to do with how we're going to grow it. Maybe that's because a 500 collection practice is a 3-day-a-week practice. It's not a full-time practice. So it's only a full-time practice if you choose it to be a full-time practice. And if you're going to sit around for 4 days or 5 days a week and it's not growing, you didn't buy the right practice. You didn't have the right active patients. There's not the right marketing for new patients. You should turn on insurance plans, whatever. But this thing is not growing. And so, the key is to be able to see these maybe $1 million practices that make 450, and now all of a sudden you pay debt service and you make 350 on day one as an owner. I'm like, dude, let's close. Like, what are we doing here? I mean, I always ask too, like, are you married? Like, yep. Okay. And if I'm talking to the guy, I'm like, well, where's your wife from? Oh, she's from here. We're buying this practice. If I'm talking to a girl, I don't need to ask this question if I'm talking to a girl, because married or not, she's going to be happy because that's where she is. So I already know I don't need to ask. That's a dumb question. And so then if it's a guy that's like, you married? He said, no. I was like, well, are you dating anybody? It's like, yeah. It's like, well, where's she from? She's from here. I'm like, okay, we're buying the practice. But if she's from another place, I'm like, well, have you really thought about this? Does she really like this area? No, she didn't really like the area. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not sure if we're still going to buy this thing. Is this married calling? Are we getting married here? Or are we just kind of fooling around? Like, I need to get into this because this is a life decision. We're buying a business.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember you said that too when you came to speak at our school, and I was cracking up about that. That's funny.
Yeah, women control this world we live in. I mean, you want to pretend like this men rule. Men don't rule the world. It's freaking women rule the world. They make the decisions that need to matter.
Oh man. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, so why don't we go ahead? I feel like we probably have time for, we'll see how long, but we can at least do one of those stories you were talking about. Just kind of yeah, and then if we have time, we can always dip into the other one if we.
Yeah. I'll tell two quick stories, and so I'll look at our time here. I'll do 3-4 minutes on each one, just so the listeners can kind of hear kind of two different stories. So first story is a D4 graduates. He meets this lady dentist. It's up in the north east, and they develop a relationship. And she says, "Hey, do you want to buy the practice?" And it's $1 million practice, and the price is $800,000. Here's the price, $800,000. Do you want to buy it? Yes or no? And so D4 naturally says no. I don't have no experience, but I'd like to work with you. So I feel comfortable working with you for 3 years. Well, the business at the time was doing $1 million. The business at the time netted $450,000. Now, realistically, a D4 was not going to be able to get $800,000 to buy the business. Realistically, it was probably going to take at least a year. And so I think he finished, I want to say, in 18. Because now it's coming up on the 3-year mark. The business grew 4 chairs. It went from $1 million to $1.4 million. Now it nets $700,000 before it pays senior doctor and before it pays this associate doctor. 50% overhead, 4 chairs, killing it out of 4 chairs. I mean, knocking it out of the park. Young man goes back. Hey, I'd like to buy the business now. It's been 2 years. Guess what the price is? $1.4 million. No reason. Just it's 1.4. Valuation? Nope. I've decided now I like dentistry. Yeah, you're working 2 days a week. He's running the show. He's doing like $60,000 in clinical dentistry now. But guess what? It's kind of on you, brother. You didn't make the deal. You didn't line everything up. Now, this young man I'm beyond proud of, because he recognizes it and basically says, Charles, I get it. It's emotionally, I still want to buy this thing. Can you show me it still makes sense? Okay, it makes $700,000. If I borrow 1.4, meaning take his cash, put a down payment down, get a little bit of seller financing, and we execute this deal, I have to pay debt on 1.4 million, or it's about $160,000 a year. So now it's 700, it makes 540. Okay, pay her a little bit, 100 grand to be the associate at 440. We both still run this little 4-chair practice. I own it now, and I make way more. I was making like 200, 225 now. Now I'm making 450 with her, the associate, and buying it after debt. I made the mistake of not buying it at 800, made a mistake of maybe not buying it $1 million, $1.1 million, $1.2 million. I made a mistake, but I need to get past it now because it still makes sense, right? And I'm like, I hate to be that guy to tell you that I don't want to be known in the industry for Charles and NDP with all these years guiding me to pay 100% of collections for the practice, because I don't want that word on the street. I want the word on the street that he removed the emotions. I overpaid for the practice. He showed me that. I knew that. But where else am I going to make $500,000 out of the gate with no risk? Because I'm already in the deal running it, right? And so there's so many people. I'd say probably 50% of the people that I would know would walk away from that deal because of the emotion that says, you made me angry. You didn't hold me your end of the bargain. I hate you. You're taking advantage of me, and all these little emotions that would go in, and then they would run. I'm gonna do a startup now. Okay. Let me know how long that takes you to get to 2,000 active patients. Let me know how long that takes you to get to $500,000 of net income to your pocket. You can terminate her tomorrow and make 560 because you can almost do the work yourself. So story one was, I'm still happy for you. You know, I wish we could have, and we talked about it a little earlier, I wish we probably could have had some things written down and agreed to, and we could have revisited every 6 months to see where we are. And because your confidence kind of kicks in after about a year, like, I can do this. Okay. The second is, I've got two female dentists that I'm working with right now, and both have spouses. They're both in dentistry. Both have 2 kids each, and so their household income is actually pretty good. You know, as an associate, they're both kind of making like 200, and then the husbands are making like, I don't know, whatever, 200 each as well. So they both want to get into ownership, but they want to share it. And so what they're going to do is they're actually going to buy a 600 collection practice. They're going to pay around a very low price of 300. And so what now they're going to do is, I've looked at the practice, and now that practice, with very little growth, we can get it to 750. And I ran the numbers out so they can easily make about 350,000 each, $350,000 total, about $175,000 each, even after debt, because it's a fee for service practice. But they get to cut back their days. They're working 4 days a week as an associate. Now they're going to share their practice and just work 2 days a week. They're like, I don't care if I take a pay cut. I just want to get into ownership and have something that I can kind of work with. And this is this partner that I kind of want to work with. And so, you know, there's so many just like things. You just have to like listen to people and what they want to do. But it's always not about just making more money. This is an example. They're actually going to make a little bit less money, but they get to now have the equity in the business. They can grow it if they want. You know, one of them has 2 kids, one of them 3 kids. So they get to have a little bit of this work-life balance. Get these kids maybe into the elementary school and that, and then maybe focus a little bit more. Who knows? Keep growing, and who knows? Bring an associate in to grow this thing because it's got some space. And so there's just, you know, every situation I think is a great opportunity to look at and to be the owner. In this case, the example with my 2 female dentists, it's going to work out. You know, it's just like you can see their excitement as well. And they listened to some of the podcasts and read an article that my colleague Christy had written, and they're motivated, you know, inspired about, okay, we can do this. And so anyway, couple of stories. There's literally hundreds. I can go on for days with stories of people. But
Yeah.
people are successful, you know.
Yeah, I think it's super cool to hear those stories because I mean, there's so many different ways you can go about it, and I think that second story specifically really highlighted that. I mean, yes, you can make more income as an owner, but that doesn't have to be your main driving factor. Like, there's so many different things that go into it. You know, lifestyle, location. There's so many things, and that's kind of what we at Shared Practices here recently have been preaching. We've been saying, like, okay, you need to look at your situation, your life, and how do you want it to look? Do you want to be in a higher income area doing cosmetic work? Do you want to be in a lower income area just really, really helping people out that need it? There's so many different ways to go about it, and I think that's one of the awesome perks of being in dentistry is just the flexibility.
Yeah, and for them, you know, it was that they had did this kind of Medicaid kind of PPO thing. They're killing themselves on 4 days a week to do the same. And so there's certainly passion that you want to go and take care of certain patient populations and people and certain procedures. I get it. But there's also a point in time that you want what you want. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then in this case, this fee for service practice that they end up purchasing, that they're almost at close, is now it's there. Now they have more time. Now they make, the same money. If they want to go give and do something else in dentistry, they can. How about at your own practice?
Exactly.
Your own practice,
Exactly.
you can choose to do the dentistry you want to do on the patients you want. Somebody is your church, you want to do this? Perfect.
Yeah.
A population you want to open up on this part of the week. You only want to see these types of patients because that's what you perfect because you own the business. Don't let someone else dictate it. That's even going to be making money off of that patient. Make it more about what you want to do. Let yourself be in control, and so you can give what you want to give.
Awesome. Yeah. And yeah, that's great. It's always, we preach that all the time, but it's awesome to hear it from another source too. Just make it what you want to make it. And
Yeah.
that's such a great benefit that we have here. Well, Charles, it's been fantastic. I really appreciated interviewing you. I'm sure a lot of our guests did as well. I know you're a wealth of knowledge, so can't thank you enough for being on today.
Hey, Peyton, I appreciate what you guys are doing, and let's keep putting more and more positive content out there about why you should own a business. So thanks for the time this morning, and appreciate the interview, and good luck to all your listeners.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week on The Pursuit of Ownership.